Hi, my name is Tas Bober. I've worked in B2B digital marketing and website for 15 years, mostly in-house, and now I work as an external consultant for B2B SaaS companies, helping them with their paid ads and landing page strategy. Most recently, I helped one of my clients who is targeting a very, very difficult ICP, so InfoSec security teams. I helped her with her competitive landing page strategy and took her conversion rate from 0.13 to 3.73%. And her CTA was book a demo. So these were folks who were clicking on the book a call link, going directly to a calendar for the SDRs where they could schedule meetings. And my methodology is a combination of some B2C CRO principles, but not all of them apply to B2B. So we marry some of those principles with B2B, the B2B buying journey, which is typically very research heavy, needs to have a lot of information and education. So we combine those on the page and then we measure it two ways. One is consumption, how much of the page are users actually engaging and consuming content on? And then secondarily, how much of that is driving conversions, not just on the page, but overall for the website. So for me, in terms of how much effort that took, I did the optimizations and recommendations. It took me about a day and we did about 2 pages. She implemented them right away because I don't try to create new blocks or more development work than she needed. It was more within the context of the design she already had. And outside of paying for my cost to help advise on what she needed to do, she didn't have to spend any extra budget. So that's another thing where I recommend for my clients. I'm like, can you get the most out of what you're spending now before we go back and start asking your CFO for more money and more money and more money? And so I think that everybody can actually do this. It's quite simple. If we have those principles set and that shift in mindset, that we can't treat B2B landing pages like B2C.
If that resonates with you, listen along. Also, check out our other episodes. You're listening to TNDR, the B2B SaaS growth podcast brought to you by Spear Growth. The goal of the podcast is to enable you, our listeners, to generate an additional $100,000 in cumulative pipeline by May 2024. To do this, we bring people who have made a real impact in their companies. They cut through the fluff and dive deep into one tactic or strategy of theirs. I'm your host Ishan. Let's generate pipeline. Hey Tas, thank you so much for doing this. By the way, we met luckily, right? Just out of the blue, we've just met on Exit 5.
Yeah.
Since we connected, I've been seeing you everywhere. I told you this, but there's every single place either someone's tagging you or you are commenting somewhere. It's amazing, right? So thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, no worries. My husband calls LinkedIn our third child. So I do spend quite a bit of time on there. I'm naturally leaning more towards extroverted. I think on Myers-Briggs, I'm like 65%. So that 65% really shines on LinkedIn. But then I don't want to hang out with anybody in person. So I guess that's the other 35%.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me.
Yeah, no worries.
So can you how about this, right? For everyone, can you just give like a quick summary of what do you do or your journey?
Yeah, I spent most of my time in-house for my career, but somehow unintentionally fell into B2B marketing. And then no one in B2C ever hired me. So B2B is where I am. If someone says Shopify, I'm like running for the hills. I can't do anything. I can't help you with your Shopify. Sorry. And but B2B is kind of where I stayed. I spent the first half of my career in just normal B2B. I call it normal B2B. And then the second half was B2B tech. And then I've ran a couple of digital and website teams for companies anywhere between like 100 million in revenue and up, and managed a lot of budgets. But now that I'm external, I really focused on niching down, which helped with my company.
Yeah.
And so I focus on B2B landing pages driven to by paid ads for B2B SaaS companies. And I think potentially, I want to niche down
Mhm.
even further to help companies that have very difficult ICPs. So DevOps, security teams,
Mhm.
engineers, product developers, because I feel like just coming from a technical background, I think I have a little more savviness there. And most marketers don't
Mhm.
want to touch those ICPs with a 10-foot pole. So it's an underserved market. But I married a developer. So I feel like I know some inner workings. He's not a developer anymore, but at the time we
Mhm.
met. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of what I'm focusing on right now for my business.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's dive right into the process that you followed for this specific landing page, right? So I think one thing that I really, really liked about what you said was, hey, so you've said that, hey, the conversion rate went up by almost 3 times, 2.5 to 3 times, right? Which is great. But apart from that, you also mentioned that there's a bunch of other metrics that you also track. Can you maybe just outline all the metrics that you think are important for this?
Yeah. So I want to start with a little anecdote
Mhm.
because I think we need to set the stage about how the B2B buying journey actually works, right?
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
actually wrote a post about this, but we'll go over this again because it's important. And the first thing is when I was in house purchasing or researching software, I would have multiple touch points with the company where I proactively reached out to them or they reached out to me. And only on the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, maybe seventh interaction would I actually reach out to them to have a meeting, right? Because when I was in house, I was quadruple booked all the time. I'm not trying to have extra meetings unless I'm just at the point where I'm ready to have that discussion or ready at that stage of the journey.
Yeah.
So for me, when I see low conversions on any paid ads program or any landing page, that's not necessarily a red flag for me, because
Mhm.
then what I do is I think about my journey specifically. And there are some times where I will go to a landing page, I get all the information, I'm good. I put that on my one-on-one list to talk to my boss to make sure she's okay with me pursuing it. I leave the landing page.
Mhm.
Then I come back direct to the website and I submit a form when I've gotten approval maybe weeks later, right? So
Mhm.
for
Yeah.
me, I look at the metrics in two ways. One, if it's a B2B landing page, it should most likely be long form because you are educating and guiding the prospect through that journey and all the pieces they need in order to get the information that they want to make a decision, right? Or even just to select you for evaluation. So I look at how they're consuming information on the page, which means you're looking at those vanity metrics that people always crap on. I love them because they are positive or negative indicators of where it's going to end up. So things like heat map data, I look at just general, and you don't need to get new tools. So using just GA, I know people hate GA4, but whatever. It's just learn to use it. Uh,
Yep.
so you're looking at session data, how they're engaging on the page. I love watching recordings. I watch them on my own website every week. So I watch like 5 to 10 recordings just to see how people are interacting with the
And
messages.
what do you use for that? Clarity?
Yeah, you can use
Clarity, Hotjar.
most of them offer like a free tier, so you don't even have
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
spend the money. I use Hotjar just because I have forever, but I know people use
Yeah.
Crazy Egg, Microsoft Clarity. One of my clients uses. So another one uses Trust
Yeah.
something or the other. I can't Trust Factory or something. Anyway,
Mhm.
I'm
Sure.
tool
Yeah.
agnostic. Whatever you need to get you to the outcome, which is getting
Mhm.
access to that data, is super important because, and I'll give you an example. One of the things with the same client that we found is we put all the capabilities in this block on the page that had tabs, right? You know, those blocks that are like
Mhm.
tab
Yeah.
one and you can click
Yeah.
within it. We put the most important part about our product is in that tab, and we are expecting users to go through
Mhm.
each of the tabs. After a couple of weeks of data, I looked at the recordings and I looked at the heat map. Not a single user in 2,000 users, not a single one clicked through those tabs. What does that tell me?
Mhm.
They're not consuming the information that's on the page. which means we're not giving them compelling reasons to buy or pursue the buying journey with us, which means the conversion is not going to
Mhm.
come whenever it does end up coming. So at that point, we change the layout of that block. And now, the one
Yeah.
that's like, it's got an image on the side and it's got language on the left, image on the
Yeah.
right, whatever. We did one of those because at least the content has a fighting chance of being seen. So your first
Yeah.
step is always, I got to be seen. I got to be heard. I got to be
Yeah.
seen. I got to give myself the best chance of success. And then you look at the metrics on page conversion. Sure, it's a secondary goal. Obviously, I would love for that to happen. But looking at then your return visitors on the whole site, because people may not find your landing page again if they leave, they're going to come back to your main site. So looking at the return visitors that come back, and then
Mhm.
looking at your overall demo request of whatever your CTA is, demo requests, free trials, whatever, looking at that, the increase in that from the point when you started this campaign.
So just to clarify something, you said conversion is a secondary metric, and then you mentioned demo request. What's the difference between
It
the two?
depends on what you're trying to optimize for. Most of my clients, I try to
Mhm.
focus on those core KPIs and core CTAs, like either free trial or getting you a meeting. Those are like the most
Yeah.
important. But sometimes it's like,
Mhm.
okay, there are lots of B2B companies who are doing gated content. I try not to mess with that. But that's why I'm saying, okay, your conversion
Yeah.
could be booking a meeting, your conversion could be download this data sheet or template or whatever it is. So in my case, I'm using them synonymously, where booking a demo is the conversion action, but whatever that is for you.
Perfect. Okay. Understood. By the way, my favorite one was return visitors. I've not seen a single person talk about it.
Yeah.
Everything else I've heard, I've seen, I've used extensively. Return visitors is the one that I haven't. Just have to clarify one more before
Yeah.
I get to that. You said session data. When you say session data, like what exactly are you looking at
I look
there?
at the users coming in. The users are like new and returning, obviously. The session data is how much time they're spending on the page itself. And then how far down the page are they scrolling? Where do we lose them? So the benchmark, if you want to put a benchmark on it for B2B landing pages, is about only 30% make it below the hero, which is like really sad. The good news is
Yeah.
the benchmark's really low, so it's easy to go above that. My goal is to get at least 70% of the people to scroll to the bottom, or at least like two-thirds of the page.
Oh wow.
So that's
Okay.
kind of my goal. So I look at that stuff and I'm like, okay, do we need to reorganize some of this, or do we need to tease some of the copy ahead of time because we don't want them to miss some compelling information down below? Um, but also I'm vehemently, is that a word? Suddenly, like, my accent just out of nowhere comes out, But anyway, um, I'm against the form at the top of the page unless it is a demo request landing page where they've come to the end of the line, they've done their research, and they want to request a demo from you. But in every other case, I always say, please don't ask them to marry them before they've even dated you.
Okay. I love that. Okay, so that's something I will ask you about. Um, just before that, right? Can you outline the entire process? For example, let's say if you had to, let's say in this case, you had to optimize a
Yeah.
page. So from how did you select that page to optimize to, okay, what did you look at some data first, or did you run an experiment? Were there multiple iterations? Like what did the entire process look like? Can you just outline
Yeah.
that?
Right before we jumped on our call, I was actually making my landing page audit checklist. So this is good.
Perfect.
Typically, companies will come to me and they want me to help in two ways. One is, hey, I have these existing landing pages. Can you look at them and let me know if I'm on the right track? Those ones are a little
Hmm.
more of a lighter version because I always tell people I'm not a CRO specialist. Like, there are a billion of them on LinkedIn. You can go read a HubSpot article and learn how to optimize a
Yeah.
page. That's not why I'm here. I'm here to be the buyer's advocate and see whether you are being clear on the page about what your offer is, and you're giving them all the information in order to make that informed decision. That's a little bit harder for me if I just do an audit without any context, but I do offer that as kind of
Yeah.
like a low ticket offer. And with that, the process is I look at technical functionality first, which is how long does it take for your page to load? Are you meeting ADA requirements? Because there's like 25%, the statistic is like 25% of the internet has some sort of like disability requirement or like inhibitions in terms of browsing websites. So you still want to cater to that part. Plus, you can get fined. I have before. You learn the hard way, right? And so I look at those things. I look at performance, because if your page doesn't load, it doesn't matter what's on the page. So I look at that stuff. I look at the tech stack to make sure that you have the right things in place in order to collect the information you need in the future to make decisions, right? And so I look at that stuff. Then I look at small CRO qualities and principles that we can steal from B2C. I'm I'm an anti-navigation for landing pages. This is a big fight everybody has with me. I'm
Yep.
anti-navigation because it is a focused experience. I want to promise, I want to deliver on the promise of the ad. And then I want to make sure that they're not distracted, because that's very easy in today's day and age to just switch away. And buyers aren't stupid. If they want something, they know where to get it. So there's that. And then I look at things like a minimal footer. So I'm looking at all those distraction points. I'm seeing whether you have a lot of exit points. I'm also seeing if you have tons of things like pop ups, chat bots, all of these things coming up. And those things have this,
Yeah.
they have their place. You have to be very strategic about every component on the page. And then lastly, I
Yeah.
look at what the layout of the page is telling me, right? What do you typically see on a lot of B2B landing pages? Oh, look at us. We're so great. Look at all our awards, and look at how much everybody loves us. And hey, look at our G2 badge. Isn't that amazing? Even though every single person has a damn G2 badge, like just stuff like that, where it's like, what part of the page are you actually helping the buyer buy? And then it's like, oh, by the way, we're so great. This is why we're great. All right, we're ready to receive your contact information so we can harass you nonstop forever, please. Right? And so that's when I look at the layout and I tell them, you're going to need to restructure this in order to make sure that it tells a story or it helps them in their research during the like selection process. I always tell my clients, I'm not trying to get the buyer to buy from you, right? Which if I could, I'd be very, very rich. I'd have companies just like banging on my door. I'm trying to get buyers to put you on the short list for evaluation. That is my job.
Love that. Okay, so in the other, so this is one format,
Yes.
right? Let's say if you had to select, so is there a difference between this and hey, what's the other
Yeah.
one?
So then some companies will come to me and say, I'm too embarrassed to show you my landing pages. So, you know, what would you recommend as like a starter pack almost for landing pages? And with that, I do have um, 6 or 7 frameworks based on what they need, what their product does. So this one is a little more of an intense process where
Yep.
I now embed myself with the client for about 4 to 6 weeks. Usually it's 8. The first couple of weeks, I am ramping up very quickly on the entire market and buyer's journey for their solution specifically. So it starts off almost with product marketing methodology. So if you don't follow Anthony Pieri, Robert Kaminsky, the Fletch Bros, right? I utilize their vernacular and language just so we're clear. And, that was like,
Yeah.
as a demand gen marketer, I ignored product marketing. It was just like product market. They had
Yeah.
their stuff together and I just kind of took what they said and I was like, cool. But no one
Yeah.
took the time to sit there and explain it to you like I'm 5. So
Yeah.
I love their methodology. I kind of embedded that into my process. And so just to understand the product. I don't do their part of it. If you need help with
Yeah.
positioning and
Yeah.
value prop, they're the guys to go to. I do it for myself to understand the product. I understand the market, what category they're playing in. If they didn't exist, right? If my client didn't exist, what are they doing today instead? Who are they using? What are the strengths and weaknesses of those solutions? And then how do we win? And then we walk into, what does the buyer think if there was a perfect solution? What what would that entail? So I list out all of those. And now we bring in the Fletch Guys value prop canvas. And that has all the use cases, all the benefits, features, capabilities, all of that stuff. And then I derive like value themes from those. And that's the type of information we put on the landing pages. Now, the landing pages that I give to my clients fall into these frameworks, which is one, product detail. So if someone was searching for video screen recording software, they would be taken to like Loom's product details page where they would talk about a lot of capabilities of the product and then features bundled, right, by context, social proof, FAQs, what to expect if you were to sign up or talk to sales. So that's kind of how I do it. I have 7 of them. One is like a one-to-one competitor, one's another one which is us
Yeah.
versus the alternatives in the market. So that whole canvas I told you about laid out
Yeah.
gives me the format for each of these pages, which are product details, comparison, competitor one-on-one, a primary offer if you have multiple products, your homepage,
Yeah.
um, a trust, which is interesting, but it highlights a lot of agnostic social proof. That's one landing page. So if
Yeah.
someone was looking for Loom reviews, they'd be taken to that page, right, where you can control a little bit of the narrative, and then pricing and demo. So those are like my frameworks, and that's like the startup pack that I give companies for
Yeah.
working with me for a couple of months. So they get a finished wireframe with finished copy.
Yeah. Just one clarification. When you said features by context, can you give an example there?
Yeah, so let's see. Now, sorry, I have to put my heated blanket on. So with the Fletch guy, so here's the thing. We'll use a real life example because this will make it a little more
Mhm.
clear. If you go to a landing page and all they do is just give you 600 features, right? First of all, no one would read that. And second of all, if you don't give them context around what those features help you do, right, which is the capability, what it enables you as a buyer to do, then that becomes a problem. So using the Fletch methodology as well, and he's going to yell at me later because he's like, you totally butchered that. But this is my interpretation, which is, for example, one of my clients is in the security questionnaire automation space. And so if the InfoSec team is trying to automate the questionnaire process, right? So that they can fill
Mhm.
out questionnaires instantly and they want it to be accurate. The features that go along to allowing that to happen is AI enabled questionnaires, right? So AI fills out the questionnaires. You have 90% accuracy because they leverage your knowledge
Yeah.
base, right? And and they're using your like they're uploading all your documents, using that as a knowledge center, and then creating the
Yeah.
answers for these questionnaires. So if they're trying to do something where it's questionnaires that are accurate and instant, right, then these are the features that help
Yeah.
them get there. So you're bundling those features according to the context of what the user is trying to do.
Yeah. I can imagine. I'm going to send this episode to my copy team at Spear Growth, and I can imagine them smiling as they listen to this. I love this one. Okay, so I have a bunch of
Yeah, go for
questions,
it.
right? With everything that you've said, I'm going to geek out on this one. So, just first, right? When you sort of, so I'm assuming that when you have, let's say this is a landing page that we need to optimize. So you first take all the metrics that you've looked at. So what's like a minimum data set that you look at before should I even consider this, or should I just ignore this data point because it's not enough?
Yeah, I think it depends on the company, obviously. But in my mind, if I had to just rattle
Yeah.
off a number,
Yeah.
I would just say like around 2000 sessions is where I'd start to take the data a little bit seriously.
Yeah.
Um, but I usually go off of like time period, right? Too. And I think that's why I anchor my landing page strategy for distribute like paid distribution channels, because you can reach that sample size
Yeah.
quicker. I was talking to another landing page peer. He's more B2C
Yeah.
and does a lot of optimizations,
Yeah.
very CRO focused there. And his whole thing was like he didn't really care about the distribution aspect. He was like, I'm just doing the landing page part. But the issue that he was running into was that clients were like, I'm not getting a ton of conversions and da 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 da. But he's like, I'm not controlling the distribution. I'm only helping you with your landing page. So if we're waiting for organic traffic and you don't have a lot to begin with, I'm already set up for failure. And so that's why I anchor mine to paid strategy too, because I have that website and digital background. But the digital part where I help them and I'm like, hey, looking at this, you have all these high intent keywords or even mid funnel keywords that you
Hmm.
need to be sending people to. So my requirements when I'm working with companies are, yes, the landing pages, but also appropriate distribution and not a lot of money. Like one of my clients spends 5,000 a month. It's very modest, but she gets 2 to
Hmm.
3,000 sessions, and that's enough for us to make informed decisions every couple of weeks on what we're changing or what we're
Yeah.
testing next.
Understood. Got it. No, this is helpful. Um, you've mentioned two things, right? So one of the things is mentioned that, which I, so there's a lot of ways to do this. The way I do it is the opposite of what you've said, right? So even though I agree to that's the best. That's the thing I like the most about this one. So, for example, you said you're against the demo form in the first fold. In all the experiments that I have personally run, I've seen that work better for
Hmm.
me. And again, I'm not saying your way is
Yeah.
wrong. I'm just saying that hey, it's different, and I would love to learn your way. And the second is like the no nav. When I think I don't have a lot of data to back this one, but yeah, like I'm pro nav
Yeah.
personally. So yeah, like there's. So do you have any arguments? Because I would love to learn something and change my mind on either of those two things,
Yeah.
right? Because I would love to do that.
So
Yeah.
you can test it out. I mean, I even saw today someone else posted about landing page stuff and someone commented and said, hey, we tested nav and no nav. And either way, our conversion rates just didn't change. So I'm like, okay, that's
Yeah.
fair. And for me, and that's the same thing. I talk about this all the time, which is you can't walk into a company and say, oh, I've tried that. It didn't work at this company or it didn't work at my last
Yeah.
job. And so it's not going to work here. Everything is always open to
Yeah.
being challenged. I call it the 2% rule, which is I can sit here and speak with conviction about any topic, but assume a 2% chance I could be wrong. And I think that helps
Yeah.
create a more cohesive situation, right? So one of my clients
Yeah.
argued with me about the navigation piece. So the compromise that we reached was I don't mind a navigation if it anchors to different parts of the page, right? Too. So it's like if you have a story in your page that says, okay, you have the
Yeah.
intro, then maybe you talk about the capabilities a little bit. Now you're talking about pricing or, what to expect in the sales process or
Mhm.
testimonials, and they want to jump down to each of those sections, you can. And it might actually give you some extra data in the heat map to see what they're
Yeah.
most interested in, right? So I'm totally open to that. I'm
Mm.
like, okay, cool. That was one thing. The other thing is when I had another argument with a different client about the navigation, I said, okay, let's try this, which is we'll remove the top nav, but on the organic version of the page that's just sitting on your website, let's look at where the next logical place is that they've gone. And so the two places we saw that they went from that product page was the pricing page, the demo page, right? Actually, no, she didn't have a demo
Yeah.
page. The pricing page, the about us page, like who the company was. And so what we ended up
Yeah.
doing was we put a minimal footer in the bottom that if they got to the bottom, there was a pricing link and there was an
Yeah.
about us as a company link. So we gave them those points based on
Mhm.
the data, what the next step is that most users take, and then they were able to go. So
Yeah.
we're still testing the no nav, and then the other clients in the process
Mhm.
of the in nav. So we'll
Yeah.
see. But I prefer no nav because honestly, it makes my data analysis a little bit easier because my
Yeah. Yeah.
prospects' attention isn't spread across too many,
Uh, Yeah.
variables.
Perfect. So there's two other things you said which are related, right? So one, I think you've said multiple times now that the page tells a story, and another thing that you said which I really liked was you look at what the perfect solution, and I'm reading this, what the perfect solution would look like for the
Yeah.
prospect. So where do you get that information from? Like, do you speak with people? Do you speak with the sales team? Where do you get that from?
Yeah, it's that canvas that I told you about. It's between the
Yeah,
company and I. So we'll talk about what that is, right? And sometimes their product may not even meet those requirements yet, but it creates
yeah,
this awareness around like what's the most important thing that the users are looking for. So some of that data will come from the client telling me, we hear about this in sales calls a lot. They're looking for a solution that does XYZ. And then they ask us,
yeah,
do you guys then do XYZ? So they'll tell me. So that's the information that the feedback that they might give to me, right? Because we focus a lot on the pain, but we're not focusing a lot on like what's the desired outcome that they want and like
yeah,
what is the desired solution. Because I can guarantee a lot of companies are like, we're an all-in-one da 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 platform, and it's like, they maybe they just don't want you to be all-in-one. They just want you to be the one. You know what I mean? Like, I'm on a dating app. I don't need you to be my husband, my mechanic, my dad, my brother. Like, I just want you to be my husband. Like, I got the other stuff covered. Thanks. So some of that is from there. The other is from keyword research. So one of the things, back to that infosec experience too, with the questionnaires, we're calling it one thing, but buyers are calling it something else. So that's also language and
yeah,
vernacular we're going to look at and see where the opportunities are. And then seeing, oh, this is actually what they're calling it and what they want,
yeah.
but we're missing the opportunity because we're not calling it that. And so it's also having a little bit of an open mind to give us like what that those targets could be eventually when we do have a certain
Yeah.
capability or certain feature.
For me, amongst everything we've discussed, and we've discussed some lot of, hey, let's look at this data point and let's structure it in this way. And there's a lot of this other stuff, but I think this is the most important point. And just correct me if I'm wrong. Like, if this information is not there on the page to start with, your data won't tell you this is important because it does not exist. Your data cannot tell you to add a section,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Like, so I think this is probably the most or my favorite part of your entire process, that have this discussion of what the perfect solution would look like.
Mhm.
So I love that. I'm going to steal that from
Steal
you,
it.
that entire
Yeah.
phrasing.
Steal it.
So yeah, and so the story you make is basically a reflection of the perfect solution, or how do you
Yeah.
think of that?
So it depends on the page, but I'll tell you the
Mm.
framework that my
Yeah,
my clients love. The two that are their
yeah,
favorites are the product details, because sometimes they have issues with, gosh, we have all of these features. How do I talk about all of them? I'm like, well, you don't. Right? So they could have multiple products, multiple personas, and it's like, how do we do this in like this one product page? And that's where I use value themes, which I got the concept from April Dunford's books. So if you haven't read them, please read them. They're amazing. But she talks about value themes, which is categorizing your features in context of what the buyer is trying to do, right? And the value that they're going to get. So, for example, if I want to talk about the security questionnaire, right? So I'm sitting there going, security questionnaire, AI powered security questionnaire, knowledge base center, security documents all in one place. Like, okay, what are you, are you a robot? Like, what's happening? Right. So now you can say, um, save your infosec team 90% of their time by automating their security questionnaires through a knowledge base, right, center that gets smarter over time with each repetition. Value theme. So you're grouping some of those features together, right? And then you're leveraging three or four of them that actually tell a story on the page. And so my favorite one, the product details, we group them by
mhm,
capabilities. Then we go into that some of the social proof and stuff. But my favorite framework is
Mhm.
actually the comparison framework, which is
Mhm.
if I was an InfoSec team, right, today, the hero starts out with
Mhm.
what approach is best for InfoSec teams to complete security questionnaires? That is literally the name, the hero question,
Yeah.
right? For an ICP
Yeah.
to do this, what are the approaches in the market? And so I tell people you can approach competitive positioning and messaging in a way that has some integrity. You don't have to sit there and fight
Yeah.
competitor to competitor. You can say you can be a guide for your buyers instead of trying to sell them, which means if I'm looking as an infosec person, I'm like, I need to figure out something for security questionnaires. I come to this page that's like, what approach is best for you? And you go down to
Yeah.
what's the problem? What are the problems today? Security questionnaires take way too long. They're extremely manual, right? We always constantly have to keep it up to date. The documents are scattered everywhere. That's the problem. Now we're going into, well, what does an ideal world look like? Well, ideal world, it would be automated almost instantly. I could trust the answer so I don't have to keep going back and reviewing them, right? I could keep all my documents in one central location that's not just internal facing, but external facing too. That would be amazing. And then over time, it's not going to get outdated because it's smart enough to evolve over time. Like, oh, yeah, that's sick. Okay, cool. Then you go into why infosec teams choose our solution, and then you can talk about how you have some features and capabilities within context of that ideal solution and ideal world.
I love your examples. So I think one question that comes to mind is, so when you've been talking about a lot of this, it's usually demand capture, where all you're saying that, hey, you're looking for something, we have this. We're not trying to convince you to buy something. It's not demand gen. You want something, we have it. We're just sort of placing it in the right context. Um, in that, the issue with most channels is that you cannot really select which kind of, like, what size of companies or what,
Mm-hmm.
which personas or who's really coming to the website. So very often there's going to be multiple types of companies that come to the same website, and for all of them the perfect solution would look different.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you tackle
But
that?
that's the distribution part of it, because my landing pages aren't just on the website open to everybody and their brother.
Yeah.
It would be specific messaging for that persona. So now that same framework, say they were also targeting
Hmm.
DevOps, dev teams care
Hmm.
about something totally different than sec teams, right? So
Yeah.
you could create contextually, same framework, two different pages, one for the dev team, one for the security team, based on what they're looking for. But the distribution aspect is
Yeah.
super important, where you are targeting either the types of companies and types of departments and functions that match the persona or something else, right? So this is where those landing pages, I call them sandboxes, where you're testing messaging with a specific ICP to see what resonates and what doesn't resonate. Now, once you have that, you can take those winning experiences and put it on your main website and help drive the main website up as well, and start to like also have some SEO juice flowing in there.
Understood. Okay, makes sense. So if you cannot, let's say for example on Google Ads, right, the exact same keywords
Mm-hmm.
could get you people in mid market, enterprise, and especially infosec. We have a couple of clients in
Mm-hmm.
infosec. So in there, that's especially true. Usually, most of them are SMBs. A few of them
Mm-hmm.
would be mid market, and rarely would you see enterprise, which is true across industry, especially in infosec. So in that case, if let's say you don't care about SMBs, do you just don't care about them and just write it the page for
No.
mid market?
Yeah.
Or
So my
yeah.
philosophy, because people were like, how do you
Mhm.
make sure that we're excluding the wrong type of buyer and we're including the right kind of
Yeah.
buyer? And I'm gonna say, okay, this is gonna blow your
Mhm.
mind. Okay, just watch. This is like, it's revolutionary. Okay. Call out who you're for on the page. So, one of the things, and I'll give you another example. I work with another
Mhm.
company who's targeting security teams, and they are in bot management,
Mhm.
right? Bot management software. Their
Yeah.
ACV is $100,000 and up, right? But who's
Yeah.
also purchasing bot software? You are, yours SMB. I
Yeah.
am. I'm a solo consultant, right? So what happens is with keyword research, if someone's looking for bot management software or bot software, it could be anybody from
Yeah.
Ishan to like Jeff Bezos. Maybe, I don't know whether he's looking for it, but you know what I mean? Like it could be
Yeah.
someone enterprise
Yep.
wide. And so that was funny because when we did the audit, he did everything right. His landing pages weren't
Yeah.
terrible. They could be improved. His paid ads,
Hmm.
his keywords were on point. There was no like silver dagger that was like, wow, this is wrong. He has like,
Yeah.
you know, audience expansion on or whatever. It wasn't anything crazy.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was literally the qualifier of who he is for and who he is
Yeah.
not for. And so one of the things we did across all his landing pages is that when the minute the buyer or prospect comes to that, even with like just bot management software, they see enterprise bot management solutions for companies like Target, da 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 da. You're going to immediately look at that and be like, "Oh yeah, I'm in the wrong place." Right? So I think that's the biggest thing is you got to qualify and make sure that you call out your ICP. And a lot of companies are so scared of this because they don't want to leave a lot of money on the table, but they're actually doing the opposite of that, right? So
Yep.
that's how I take care of them.
Last
Yeah.
question from my side. I know I really geeked out about this. It's because it's just a landing page, but we've been talking about it for so long. I love it. So let's say you said that you're against having the demo on the first fold. Can you just, and you probably have already answered this. Where do you like having it? Because I I think it was 3 or 4 years ago. I made a landing page where the demo form was literally
Mm-hmm.
sticky. So you could be anywhere on the page, and there was an entire large form on the right side of the
Uh-huh.
page. And I still, till date, see a lot of people love that. They're like, "Hey, I want that too."
Yeah.
So I
Okay,
can see
wait.
your face for people listening to the podcast. Tas is disgusted by that.
Wait. Who are these people that are saying they like that? Are they marketers? Like your clients are
Oh
saying
yeah,
that? Or is it a
marketers,
buy?
obviously.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Because yeah, I had
yeah.
this discussion with a friend last week, which was when we are marketers, we are completely different people than when we are
Yep.
buyers. We are just the minute we
Hmm.
turn and we're updating website copy, we turn into this possessed demon that's like,
Yep.
250% ROI, blah, you know what I mean? But then when we're a buyer, we're so annoyed, right? I can guarantee you
Yeah.
every one of my marketing friends, maybe a couple of them are a little more curious. Every single one of them would skip an ad if they had the opportunity to do it. Just saying. Okay. So that's the entire issue is that we are so wrapped up in our little like marketing world and what we have to hit these company goals, whatever. No one is being an advocate for the buyer who's sitting there impatient, annoyed, right? Just like agitated. And then, like, how dare you ask me for something before you've given me anything of value? Nothing of value, right? And so for me, I am a very strong advocate for a primary CTA on the page. So whatever your page is for, if you're trying to optimize for like a free trial or a book a call, do that. Pick one and do it, right? Um and then I do sprinkle the CTA across the page because my pages tend to be more long form and educational. So either some people will have a sticky nav that has like a schedule call up in the nav and then it just like scrolls up. Cool. Then maybe we don't need to have it everywhere. But if you don't and you want to sprinkle it every couple of blocks, that's fine. But it's more subtle and it's still like proportion wise, it's still more about them than it is you. And then it anchors to either it goes to a demo page if you wanted to, or it anchors to the form in the bottom of the page, right? So they have access to it. It's just not there in their face when they're trying to consume information or learn about what you actually do before they give you time of day. So that's kind of where I'm coming from for it, is just making sure that you're following what the buyer's intent is.
Yeah. I think that's. Is there anything that I should have asked but I missed?
Um, well, let me just think through my process here. Um, no, I don't think so.
I mean, I'd love a recap.
Yeah, I think that B2B landing pages are different from B2C. There are some principles that we could take
Mhm.
And some principles, maybe they'd make sense if you put it in context, right? I love using Old Navy as an
Mhm.
example. And so imagine if you were looking for summer dresses and Old Navy was like, hey, we have summer
Mhm.
dresses, right? That said it in the ad. And then you click on it
Yeah.
and it just dumps you on the homepage. And it's like, hey, we have shorts and we have cool red sunglasses and we have, and then now you're trying to navigate around the site, trying to find the dang summer
Yeah.
dresses. It's the same concept for B2B. If a user is searching for something
Yeah.
or your ad promises something, please, for the love of all that is good, take them to a page that answers their question, right? Do not just dump them on your homepage. Second, B2B is very information and research heavy, which means that you can't sit there and keep optimizing for direct conversions because that is not how they buy. What you should optimize for is continuous interaction with your brand. Return visits, exploration, seeing what they're doing, giving them the information that they need, right? And looking at those feedbacks and metrics. Don't discount vanity metrics, look at them as positive indicators for a potential conversion down the line, right? And then make sure that you have a core set of landing pages. You don't need to manage 60, right?
Yeah.
There's so many companies come to me like, I have 60 pages. I'm like, why? Why can you look at my 60 page? I'm like, no, I refuse to look at 60 pages. I'm sorry, but I will look at your top 3 most performing. I'll tell you where to consolidate, but you only need like 6, 7, maybe 10 if you have multiple products. And then what you need to do is
Yeah.
massage those pages over time. That's what you need to do. You need to take care of
Yeah.
them, right? And so that's what I always position for my clients, is making sure that you have the foundations covered so you can go on vacation and your paid campaigns are still working for you.
Yeah. Perfect. That was amazing. The two things that my favorite two things were, one, the question, what does the perfect solution look like? And then just that convert that into a story and tell the stories to the page. And the second is, look at return visitors apart from everything else that you're also looking at. Those were
Yeah.
my two biggest takeaways for me. Thank you so much for doing this. Could you give like a quick elevator pitch to anyone who's listening and wants to work
Yeah,
with you?
I'm Tas Bober. My company name is Delphinium, although I don't talk about it a lot. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active. As Ishan knows, I just basically take over about 98% of his feed right now. But I
Mhm.
do share a lot of B2B SaaS journeys, landing pages, and website content. And I have a resource hub too that's free, with all the content
Mhm.
categorized by topic that you can go look at, including your podcast will be featured on there. So you'll be able to get access to all of those things. And I typically help B2B SaaS companies with their landing page strategy, if they're running paid ads.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Love it. Thank you again so much again for doing this. I truly geeked out on
Yeah.
this one. So this was
It
amazing
was
for me.
awesome. We didn't even get to do our other one, which was fine. This I'd rather talk about this anyway all day.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
guys.
Thank you for listening to the TLDR podcast. In case you're wondering, Spear Growth is a marketing agency. We help B2B SaaS companies like yourself with ads and SEO. Check out our website at speargrowth.com. That is SPEARGROWTH.com. Just like this, every episode starts with a 1-minute summary of what we discuss. Pick the next episode to listen to based on what you can implement right away. And after you implement any of these tactics and see an impact, we'd appreciate you drop us a note on podcast@speargrowth.com.